Story 1. When things went south with my parents, I had to find a new place to live. I was down on my luck and could only couch surf at friends' places for so long. I scoured roommate and apartment apps and eventually found a listing that caught my eye. A man named Luke was renting out a room in his 3-bedroom, 1-story house for $1,000 a month. He'd be both my landlord and roommate, but he promised he'd be out of the house most of the time, so I'd often have the place to myself. There were a few ground rules. No parties, no large gatherings, no drinking in the living room, and no access to the basement. These seemed reasonable, so I decided to check out the house and meet Luke. From the moment he opened the door, I sensed he was a bit reclusive. He was quiet, a bit awkward, and seemed nervous, as his voice would shake and he'd stutter. Despite this, the bedroom was a good size and the house had a nice open layout with the kitchen, living room, and dining room all in one big space. For $1,000 a month, it seemed like a great deal. Luke laid out more ground rules in person, emphasizing that I couldn't go into the attic or the basement as he used them for storage. I agreed, and 2 days later, I moved in. We didn't draft a lease or contract. I would pay him off the books each month. The bedroom was already furnished, so all I had to do was hang some decor and fill the dresser and closet with my clothes. Luke gave me a key to my bedroom, allowing me to lock it when he wasn't home, which seemed considerate at first. However, he never mentioned his job, only that he wouldn't be home much. Yet, I quickly noticed his car was almost always in the driveway. At night, I'd hear footsteps and doors opening and closing outside my bedroom. One night, I went to the bathroom and saw the basement door was open. A dim light emanated from a far corner, and I heard banging sounds. It was around 2 a.m. When I went to check, Luke appeared at the bottom of the stairs, looking visibly annoyed. I apologized, said I was just going to the bathroom, and he angrily told me to shut the basement door. This incident left me extremely unnerved. A week later, I noticed my bedroom door was unlocked even though I always locked it. My clothes were rummaged through, and some items were out of place. Realizing he likely had another key, I felt violated. I tried to confront him, but he didn't answer when I knocked on his bedroom door, even though his car was in the driveway. Later, I caught him leaving the house and asked if he went into my room. He flatly denied it, claiming I had the only key, and hurried off. I felt flabbergasted and decided to look for a new place. When I finally had a chance to check the basement, I found no light switches and used my phone's flashlight. The basement was small and smelled horrible, like raw sewage. There was a locked door emitting the foul smell, and the only furniture was an ugly couch. I quickly left, more creeped out than ever. That night, I woke up to find Luke leaning over my bed. I screamed, and he told me to shush, asking if I went into the basement. I denied it, and he told me to find another place to live, then left the room. Terrified, I packed my things and demanded half my rent back. He gave me $400, which I took just to get out of there. I slept in my car that night and moved back to my parents' house the next day. They were surprisingly welcoming after hearing what I'd been through. I still moved out a month later, but my relationship with my parents improved. If you're ever considering a random roommate from online, be very careful and trust your instincts. Story 2. In my junior year of college, I moved off campus into a student apartment building. The school assigned me a roommate named David, who seemed nice at first. He was friendly and polite, always smiling and making small talk. However, I soon noticed odd behaviors. David would linger in my room, asking intrusive questions and poking around my belongings, which made me uneasy. Then, there were the noises. Late at night, I'd hear talking and shuffling from David's room. I tried to ignore it, telling myself he was just watching TV or talking on the phone. But one night, unable to sleep, I decided to investigate. Pressing my ear against his door, I heard David whispering to himself. Suddenly, he said my name. Shocked, I quickly tiptoed back to my room. The next day, I couldn't stop thinking about it. As days went by, David's behavior became stranger. He'd make furtive glances at me, and his movements seemed more erratic. One night, I woke up to hear whispering outside my door. I went to listen and, like before, the whispering stopped and David said my name again. This time, I responded, and he walked away without a word. Another night, I woke to the sound of my bedroom door closing and David's footsteps retreating. The next day, I confronted him about his potential sleepwalking. He hesitated before admitting he sometimes sleepwalks, but I wasn't convinced. Determined to find answers, I waited until David was out and searched his room. In a hidden drawer, I found dozens of photos of me sleeping, taken from various angles and distances. There was also another guy in some photos who seemed to be our age. Horrified, I took photos of the evidence and reported it to the student housing department. They moved me to a new apartment with a normal roommate. I never spoke to David again, but the memory of those chilling photographs and his nighttime whispering still haunts me. I never found out who the other guy was, but I suspect he was David's former roommate. Story 3. At 23, I moved out of state for work and needed an affordable place to live. I posted on various websites looking for a roommate and was contacted by a guy named Rob on Facebook. He seemed normal and offered a virtual tour of his modest house, which was only a 10-minute drive from my new office. His price was fair, and his rules were reasonable, so I decided to move in. When I arrived, Rob greeted me and handed me a key. He was surprisingly short, but he seemed eager to help me settle in. The room was furnished, and I replaced the bed sheets with my own. Rob was friendly and showed me around town the next day, although he was a bit pushy about getting lunch or drinks. During my first week at work, I noticed my laundry hamper had been disturbed, and a pair of my underwear was missing. Unsettled, I decided to install a lockable doorknob for my bedroom, swapping it while Rob was out. That night, I woke up to Rob banging on my door, angry about the new lock. I pretended to be asleep, but he texted me the next day demanding the original doorknob be reinstalled. A few days later, a girl around my age knocked on the door and warned me about Rob, saying he had multiple restraining orders from different women and was dangerous. Terrified, I started packing and found a new place to move to. When I told Rob I had to leave due to family reasons, he seemed suspicious but agreed to refund my rent. That night, I woke to find Rob sitting on the end of my bed. He put his hand on my mouth and told me to be quiet. Panicked, I ran out and called the police. They arrived, made Rob give his side of the story, and supervised while I packed the rest of my things. One officer told me Rob had been arrested before for incidents with women, but he denied everything. That I moved into a studio apartment the next day, facilitated by the girl who had posted the ad. I will never live with another man who isn't my boyfriend or husband or anyone I don't know ever again.